Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. We are both so sorry that we couldn't be here last week. We were both out of town, and we thought, you know what? It's halfway through the year, almost exactly. We came off the biggest release of the summer, and we're going into our full season mode starting next week. So, you know what? Let's take the week off. And we took the week off, and it was great. And now we're back.
Mm.
Kels. How are you doing? This is Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. I am Dill. That is Kelsey. Hey, Kels, how's it going?
Hi, Dill.
And we're
I'm
live. We're
doing
live. So
good.
if you're watching live, let us
Oh,
comment away. We'll interact with you. But we are live because this is a news drop. This isn't just a Stan Lee documentary review because that probably take 10 minutes. We're doing all
yeah,
the news today. So chime in if you want to.
great. I'm doing well. I just had last few hectic. I just had a hectic weekend because I was housing hikers who are hiking the Appalachian Trail, and then it was Father's Day, and I had to go, back to Jersey for that, and then I had work today, so everything that I prepared has been prepared within in the last 2 hours before Phil doing this right now. So
Mhm.
if I sound a little bit all over the place, that's why.
Yeah. And I just got back from Detroit. I'm sure if anyone follows me on social media, you've probably seen a little bit of it. Filmed my first feature, which was really cool. Just
Cool.
got back a few days ago, so that's now in post production. We're trying to raise funds and all that, so I can drop a link if you want to help donate to that and get your name in the credits, which would be fun. If you want to
Yeah.
help support our post production funds. But yeah, it was really cool because I could kind of just separate my brain from all the podcast and YouTube stuff. I had the Spider-Verse video and the James Cameron video ready to go before I even left. So I just got to go on vacation and I was like, oh yeah, a video just dropped today. And I call it vacation. It was work, but it was nice because I got out of the city for a while. So it was nice. I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, that's right. Marvel's Movie Mondays dropped. We recorded that a few days ago. Okay, cool. It was kind of cool to just have things on the back burner. But I'm excited to be back and talking about Marvel, especially because I think in the last few weeks,
Yes.
especially, there's been so much news, not just with Marvel, but in the entertainment industry because of the writer's strike, that there's
Right.
just so much to talk about. So, would you like to start with the documentary and then talk about the news, or you want to start with the news and end with the documentary? How do you want to go about this, Kels?
Um, you seem like you had a lot to tell me. So why don't we just share our thoughts about the doc and talk
Okay,
about that, and then
yeah,
we'll delve into
cool. Yeah,
news, because
yeah,
I
we'll
feel
get
like
the
our
doc.
thoughts about the doc you are gonna be quick.
Yeah. So for anyone who didn't know, on Friday they released on Disney Plus a brand new Stan Lee documentary titled appropriately Stan Lee. It
Stanley.
is just called Stan Lee. So when I was telling everyone, I was like, "Yeah, I'm watching Stan Lee," and they're like, "His grave?" I'm like, "No, that was
What?
a joke. I was no." But now when you say you're watching Stan Lee, you have to specify watching Stan Lee 2023. And there have been other documentaries made about his life. So some people have been asking, is this worth watching? Is this a good documentary? All this stuff, and regardless of whether it's well made or not, the
Mhm.
information you get from it, it's really nothing new that you can't find on a Wikipedia page or one of his other several documentaries, because there's been so many documentaries made about his life.
Sure.
But I had not seen those documentaries, so I learned a little bit new, some new information. Kels,
Yeah.
what did you think of this documentary? We could talk a little bit about just the documentary itself, and then some of the stuff maybe you found interesting about Stan Lee himself. And then we'll talk about some news that ties into the documentary, which is worth talking about in a sec. But I'll let you take it away.
I really liked it a lot, Jill. They basically just walked us through his life from literally they start with the day he was born, and they walk us through how, he got his start,
Hmm.
working for a publishing company that was publishing comic books, and then how that comic book kind of fell apart, and then how he was the only one left. So he just built up, the Marvel comic books from the ground up, and everything. And I just thought that it was just a really well made documentary. I don't know if any of the footage was filmed separately for a separate thing to do this, or if it was all just pulled from past
Hmm. Yeah.
things. But
Well,
during the beginning, I was watching it with my roommate James, and he's narrating it and
right.
talking about
Yes.
how how he grew up in New York, and his first job he was working for a trouser factory, and we're like, is this someone like
Right.
pretending? Like, is this an
Well,
actor who's pretending to be Stan
that was
Lee?
my first worry at first because I was like, are they like creating? Because a few years ago, a documentary about Anthony Bourdain, one of the greatest chefs to ever live, sadly killed
Yeah.
himself a few years ago. They made a documentary about him called Roadrunner, and they literally artificially created his voice to read a few of his passages. And I remember there was a
Mm,
lot of backlash of that because it's like, yes, you get the approval from the estate to use his image and stuff, but like recreate
mhm,
a dead person's voice for the sake of entertainment, it's a little slimy. It's a little weird. It's a little.
mhm.
I'm not going to bring it up on this episode because we're a Marvel podcast, but a lot of issues I have with the Flash. At the end, they use a lot of dead people cameos, and it's a little jarring
Ah,
to the point where I'm like, I'm not still yet on board with the whole like, oh, they're dead, but you can like still use them, in media as long as they have approval. Yes, you can get approval, but is it still ethically right? And I was
right.
worried about that when I heard it. I was like, did they recreate Stan Lee's voice for the doc? But they don't. It's all from interviews and other things he did, probably for other documentaries as well. A lot of them felt like he was just like sitting in front of a camera telling his story.
Right.
And I like how the stuff they didn't have footage of, instead of trying to recreate it with other actors as Stan Lee or trying to get like stand-ins or body doubles, they use like almost
Mhm.
like animated kind of puppet like things, these little wood puppets or whatever, these little figurines. They're action figures essentially. I just
Right, yeah, there was all
like,
these, like, little model
yeah,
sets that they were,
yeah. So they
filming, which
they
was super
recreated
cool.
some little like action figures to like kind of reenact some moments, but it was mostly like archival footage of him speaking, which was
Mhm,
interesting. It's an interesting way to present a documentary because usually a documentary will be planned by someone with the intent of making a documentary, whereas here it's people making a documentary about someone who's already passed and just kind of pulling
mhm,
from different things of his life and
right.
things he's on the record of saying. Like they just made a Michael J. Fox documentary for Apple, and I remember Michael J. Fox was very avid in the writing process and how he wanted the documentary to be constructed, and like everything he was saying to the camera was in service of this documentary and what he wanted to get across. Whereas here, everyone kind of has to figure out what Stan would have wanted to say rather than like Stan sitting down and being like, all right, this is my story for this documentary. It's kind of an
Mhm,
interesting, like, kind of backwards way of thinking. You're kind of making it after the fact, which kind of leads to some criticisms we'll get to in a sec. But I do agree. I think it was an interesting way of presenting his life to still hear it from his voice, but have it delivered in an interesting way since he's passed since, and just kind of like getting that whole outline of his life. And I did learn a lot about his life, specifically the upbringing and like kind of how he got into
mhm,
comics, more so than like because I had already kind of known how each character kind of came about and was designed, the order of things, and then, oh, we should have a black superhero, oh, we should have a woman superhero, all these things.
mhm.
So the early stuff was the most exciting stuff, and then of course the little tidbit at the end, which was essentially its own little mini MCU commercial where he's like filming the cameos, which is cool.
Mhm.
That's stuff that's like kind of brand new, I think, to this like to any documentary. I don't think that's ever been captured in a documentary. But the other stuff is
Right.
stuff you can like find on a Wikipedia page or in a book, but still interesting information. Was there like a moment or fact that like was most exciting or kind of mind blowing to you, or was it all just kind of
Well
stuff you not really assumed, but you were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Moving on.
well, let me take a look at my notes that I was, copying down. I think what I was most surprised to learn in the documentary was that there was kind of this animosity between, or at least it seemed like, between him and Jack Kirby, and then his original illustrator for the Spider-Man comics, Steve um Ditko, I think is his
Steve
last
Ditko.
name.
Yep. Hmm.
Um and I was just surprised to hear, because like he comes across, and not that my opinion of Stan Lee has changed at all. Like I still think that he's a lovely, brilliant, or at least he was a lovely, brilliant
Hmm.
um creative individual, but it was just weird to kind of hear about, almost like they're pulling back the curtain a little bit and letting us know that not everything was,
Uh-huh.
peachy keen, and they weren't always, seeing everything eye to eye,
Hmm.
and because Steve Ditko ended up leaving, and then soon Jack also left, and then not long after Jack leaving Marvel Comics, that's when Stan Lee was no longer chief editor. He moved up to publisher, so he had a
Hmm.
lot less to do with the actual creation of the
Yeah.
stories. He wasn't
Hmm.
writing anymore,
Yeah,
so
this
it
is
was
actually
just
yeah, this is a
it was
perfect segue.
interesting.
This is a perfect segue to a lot of the stuff that's in the news about this documentary, which we'll get to in a sec. But I agree, it's
Hmm.
interesting because also right after Ditko and Kirby left, I believe Kirby passed away pretty soon after, to
Mm.
where it's interesting because Stan Lee lived probably 25 more years than these other guys. So he kind of
Mhm.
has had the time to kind of make his legacy almost kind of look better. And that's where, I
Sure.
agree. Like, it doesn't make me think less of Stan Lee because
Mhm.
obviously Stan Lee didn't have any part of putting together this documentary either. Like, other people
Right.
decided how much the other people would be credited or not credited. Stan Lee is a businessman, and he's not only selling his stuff that he's writing, but he's selling himself. I mean, there's a reason why he was this figurehead in all these cameos, is because he tried to make himself this outgoing kind of almost like Mr. Rogers like figure, like when he's talking to the kids and he's like, well, my favorite superhero is Spider-Man because, he kind of like goes on and on. And he
Yeah.
was like inspirational in that way, but you got to remember he's also a businessman. And I think
Right.
some people don't realize that even like the nicest, most charming people, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, they're businessmen and they're going to do whatever they want to succeed. Very few are as selfless as, Tom Hanks, for example. And even Tom Hanks,
Right.
too, maybe there's something we don't know about him. Um, so, and that's not to say there is. I doubt there is, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Stan Lee, it makes sense that there was some animosity, and it makes sense that people are getting a little upset about the documentary, almost framing it like he was can do no wrong Stan Lee, and everyone else was kind of like,
Mm,
secondary to him. And I think that's my
sure.
one qualm with the documentary is it's so focused on Stan and it's all from Stan's perspective to where like you don't have anyone else talking about Stan. All you get is like maybe like a comment here and there, but it's all Stan's perspective to where it very much feels like a very skewed perspective documentary, which is fine. And I think that's what's cool
Mhm.
about documentaries is you could have a documentary from the first person autobiographical, but then you can also have someone else's opinion and someone else's opinion. And I think that's where it's very interesting. But if this is like the definitive Stan Lee documentary, I think it's a little bit harmful that it's only his voice you're hearing. Like you're only hearing his
Mhm.
side of the story. And
Mhm.
actually, this brings me to my first news of the week, and that is that Jack Kirby's grandson, I believe, or son. No, I think it's Jack Kirby's grandson posted a tweet about Jack Kirby's son, his father, the grandson's father. So it'll make sense when I pull it up.
Mhm.
Addressing this, addressing the fact that kind of Kirby is not portrayed in the best light. Because keep in mind, and they did give him credit, but Kirby was the whole visual style of Marvel. Stan Lee had
Mhm.
a lot of the thoughts and the story, but Kirby did
Yeah.
the visuals, and they even talk about how like Stan would give him the story, Kirby would draw it, and then Stan would have to fill in the dialogue after seeing the drawing. So it's a very collaborative process, but
Mhm.
it's not entirely Stan's work. This is a
Right.
very collaborative, almost 50-50. I wouldn't even say 51-49. Like it's really pretty much even. You are nothing without your drawings, especially in
Yeah.
comics. You're not writing books, you're writing comic books. Half of it's a visual medium. So I'll just read some of it. Um, Statement from Neil Kirby. So Neil Kirby's Jack Kirby's son, but his grandson posted this on Twitter. But I'll just kind of breeze through this. But the 13th century Islamic poet Rumi said, "The ego is a veil between humans and God. In the Disney Plus documentary, The Veil is Lifted, presented in the first person with Lee's voice providing and running narrative. It is Stan Lee's greatest tribute to himself. The literary expression of ego is a personal pronoun I. Any decent English teacher would admonish their students not to overuse I. I'm sure that's something we all know. You try not to talk too much in the first person. The challenge is
Mhm.
extended to anyone who wishes to count the number of I's during the 86-minute runtime. Stan Lee. I love that. Understand that
Mhm.
as a documentary about Stan Lee, most of the narrative is in his voice, literally and figuratively. It's not any big secret that there has always been controversy over the parts that were played in the creation and success of Marvel characters. Stan Lee had the fortunate circumstance to have access to the corporate megaphone and media, and he used these to create his own mythos and to the creation. I lost my spot. To the creation of the Marvel character Pantheon, he made himself the voice of Marvel. So for many decades, he was the only man standing, and blessed with a long life, the last man standing. So his father died in 1994. So that's what I was saying. Stan Lee
Mhm.
basically had 2 decades, 3 decades almost, to kind of be the sole spokesperson of this creative team. It should also be worth noted that it's generally accepted that Stan Lee had a limited knowledge of history, mythology, or science. On the other hand, my father's knowledge of these subjects was extensive. Einstein summed it up better: more the knowledge, less the ego; less of the knowledge, more the ego. And then he keeps going on to say, if you were to look at a timeline from 60 to 66, period in which most of Stan Lee's tenure, all those Marvel characters were created, you'll see that Lee's name was a co-creator on every character except for the Silver Surfer, which was solely created by Jack Kirby. Are we led to assume that Lee had a hand in every Marvel character? Are we to assume that was no other co-creator that walked into Lee's office and said, Stan, I have a great idea for a character? According to Lee, it was always his idea. Lee spends a fair amount of time talking about how he created the Fantastic Four, with one fleeting reference to his father. Indeed, most comics historians recognize that actually the Fantastic Four was based on a DC comic that Jack Kirby did called Challengers of the Unknown, and he actually named Ben Grimm after his father Benjamin and Sue Storm after Jack Kirby's daughter Susan, the guy
Mm.
writing this, his older sister. So through the
Hmm.
conflict, Lee and his father, Lee and Jack Kirby, concerning creator credit, gets glanced over with little mention. There's more attention paid to the strife, and this is what you were mentioning, Kels, the strife between Lee and Ditko, with Lee's voice proclaiming, "It was my idea, therefore I created the character." Ditko's rebuttal being that his art and storyline is what brought life to Spider-Man. In 1501, the opera commissioned. Oh, this is a great analogy he makes. The opera commissioned commissioned Michelangelo to sculpt a statue of David with their idea and their money, but the statue is still Michelangelo's David, even though Michelangelo
Mm.
was hired by someone else to make it. So it's kind of saying that Stan Lee had Jack Kirby make the drawings, yet Stan Lee's getting the credit when Jack Kirby's the one actually making the art. It's
Right.
very interesting, and I know some people are
Yeah.
saying that this is kind of in poor taste on his end, because it's like now it just kind of comes across as a little bit petty. But you got to think, I mean, this guy's trying to preserve his father's legacy, because I bet if you were only watch this documentary and didn't know too much more, Stanley comes out of it looking much better than Jack Kirby. So I just thought this was interesting that this is kind of cycling around, because you're not trying to slander Stan Lee's image either, but also it's
Yeah.
very clear that Lee is taking credit for everything, basically. And
Yeah.
I do believe he had his finger in almost everything, just like Feige has his finger in every film. But there are
Right.
people saying, well, Feige was not involved at all in Guardians 3. He gave James Gunn complete control, but Feige's name's still on it. So it's one of those really tricky
Right.
things of who gets credit, who's responsible, who gets the notoriety. And again, like he said, and like you said, you know, Stan Lee has been around 30 years longer than Jack Kirby to continue to build that legacy and be in these movies and see it kind of come to life in an even bigger sense. So I just think it's an interesting conversation to have. I don't think there's a right or wrong on either side. I think Lee's, entitled to believe that he did everything, even if he had help, and he probably should have, mentioned the help. But also, the documentarians are the ones who put this documentary together. I'm sure there was some other footage of him talking about it in a more collaborative way. And maybe if the documentarians had just like gotten maybe 3 or 4 other voices to say, oh, this is what Jack Kirby did and Steve Ditko did as well, like maybe that would have helped, rather than it all being just Stan Lee's perspective, because obviously he's going to talk more
Right.
about himself and his efforts than his comrades, especially with that animosity. So any thoughts on that in general? I didn't mean to bring down the mood, but any thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting that you kind of walked away with a take that was like Stan Lee was obviously like the better, the one that kind of walked away more clean than the other two, where I kind of like, heard especially what he had to say about, when he was like, well, it was my idea. Spider-Man was my idea, therefore I'm the creator, where I kind of like, kind of listen to the other guy's point of view being like, but I'm the guy who drew it and kind of brought it to life. So I
Right.
kind of walked away from it sounding like, oh, well, you could kind of listen to both
Oh yeah.
perspectives.
No, I agree
You know
with
what I
you.
mean?
I'm definitely on both. I was saying the documentary itself, I think more people are going to leave it still thinking Stan Lee's like, the
Right.
guy. And it's not until you read this comment that you kind of see that other side. I guess maybe
Yeah.
you could see that other side in the movie, but I think
Yeah.
they could have just lead a little further into focusing on the collaboration, because yeah, their falling out is notable to bring up, but I feel like if you're going to have this falling out narrative, focus a lot on like why Kirby was still good for Marvel. I mean, like, it should have just been called Stan and Jack, and make it about the two of them and their whole journey. You know what I mean? Rather
Yeah.
than Stan,
If anything, I feel like the doc almost makes, kind of dulls the light a bit on Stan Lee, because these two people left. They didn't want to work with him anymore. And like
True.
these are things that I didn't know like happened
Mm.
in the
Interesting.
the
Yeah.
history of Marvel Comics.
Right.
So it's like, and also wait, I had another thought.
Sorry.
It poofed out of my brain. Yeah, it's interesting that that's what I was going to say. I just feel like this like if you wanted to tell this story, I feel like this documentary almost should have been made when all 3 of these men were still alive, so
Right.
that they all had an opportunity to kind of get their own word in and tell their side of the story. So it
Or
almost
have
feels like
or have Jack Kirby's son say something, like give him a part
Right.
of the documentary where he's talking about it from their
Sure,
perspective. Because you're only
yeah.
hearing it from Stan's side.
Give
So,
him a platform, like a moment to
Mhm.
add in his 2 cents.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And again, I think that's
Like,
all on the documentarians, not Stan himself, because Stan is going to say what he wants to say. But it's the
mhm,
documentarians, I think, responsibility to convey the information as truthfully as possible, or make it clear that this is just Stan's perspective, but there are other sides of the story. And I feel like they don't do either of those things. You know what I mean? They just
mhm,
kind of give us Stan's side, while also making it seem very much like that is the truth and the absolute truth. And that's where I kind of have a little problem with this documentary. And yeah, I don't think it makes anyone look particularly great.
mhm,
Especially because we love Stan Lee from seeing him in the cameos and stuff. Like you said, it doesn't
mhm.
make us like him less. It's just it. I want to see the flaws in people. Like I like watching movies where characters
Sure.
fail, because that makes them human. We all make mistakes,
Mhm.
and I think that's important. And when, especially that Disney's making this documentary about Stan Lee after his passing, like it's very rare that they're going to make him look terrible.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very very interesting.
Even if they had made a documentary about Stan Lee before he died and while he was still alive, I feel like even that would have changed kind of the tone and the narrative of it all, because they would have been able to, he would have been able to answer for this in the moment. And I think the
Right.
documentarian would have been able to say, well, don't you think that maybe you could have come to more of a compromise, or you could have given them like the co-creator, and he would have been able to answer for that, where it's just like we just are going off of this archival footage of him and these old
Mm,
past interviews of him, where that was the take that he had at the time. He might have thought differently of how they went about the whole situation, had
yeah.
they asked him, had they got the opportunity to ask
Mhm.
him. So who knows?
Yeah,
But
interesting. But yeah, that's been breaking the Twitter cycles. Everyone's been talking about that
mm,
because for the
interesting.
grandson to send this tweet and speak up for the son of Jack Kirby. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Because Stanley, I forget what they called him, but Jack Kirby, they called him like the boss, right, or the Beast or something. I don't know. I don't know. Like his nickname or whatever. I got to look up their
Who,
nicknames, but
Jack's nickname?
yeah,
Oh,
I
I
don't
don't
remember
remember.
entirely, but like he was, yeah, I agree, just as integral. So let me just look up
But
the
what I will say though is that I think the thing that kind of, drives a wedge in between, creators of something is definitely like the more popular and the more success it has and the more money it makes. And then
Mhm.
therefore there's not just this, oh, let's make comic books that we really like and that are really great for kids. There's this also now added factor of, okay, now what's going to be the bestseller? And so
Right.
there's that added pressure. And I
Mhm.
think that because it didn't happen when they just started out. They weren't, at least as far as we know,
Mhm.
they weren't butting heads in the beginning and
Right.
fighting for
Right.
co-creator credits.
Mhm.
It was when it got super popular and was one of the
Mhm.
best-selling comic
Yeah.
books out there, that Steve Ditko was probably like, hey, maybe my name should be a little bit bigger on the bottom there
Right.
next to
Yeah,
yours,
I agree. Yeah, and one other
so
thing is like I think because so many other documentaries have just talked about the creative process and like how Marvel came to be, and you can kind of find that
mhm.
in any Wikipedia. I would have liked a little bit more focus on his personal life, his relationship, because they
Mm.
briefly touch it, how he
Yeah,
like
they talk
opened the
about how
door.
he
It's like
met his
first love at
wife.
first sight,
Yeah.
but even more so, like I wanted a little bit more of him with the modern movies to like reflect on that, like oh, like this is what's happening, but again, that stuff you can't really get unless it exists, because he's gone.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I did look up the nickname. Stan was Stan the Man Lee, and Jack is Jack King Kirby, not Boss King. So they called him the
Gotcha.
King. So it was the King and the Man. So
Mm.
I hope the legacies of both men carry on as they should. And I hope things do get resolved at least. Like if anything, I hope the Kirby residents just get some sort of statement from Disney, either apologizing or maybe like a disclaimer, kind of like what they've been doing with a lot of like the racist Disney films, like just putting a disclaimer before it to say, hey, by the way, this is only one perspective. There are some
Yeah.
issues or something was left out or something. I don't know,
Yeah.
but all right. So last thing, do you recommend this documentary? What do you give it a score or anything?
I will say, though, on a more positive note about the
Yeah.
documentary, that I was happy to learn when he was talking about how he shifted over to publisher, that he still kind of kept one hand on the wheel, and that's when he really started talking about including more female
Yeah.
superheroes, and I liked
Hmm.
how that was like he set a goal, um for that to include more women in the comics, which of course I have to bring up. um I would recommend the documentary just because I appreciated, even if the whole Spider-Man story and how when he first pitched it, the the publisher at the time didn't like it, didn't want him to print it. Nobody likes spiders, whatever. Even if you know that story, I think it's still a creatively put together documentary with the usage of the archival footage and past interviews and stuff, just because they take it from present day to an interview in the 1960s to, they kind of jump around a little bit, but it feels so seamless. And I just love the moments of, like with the little action figures and the model sets
it was cool.
they did.
Yeah.
And one more thing that I did learn from this documentary, which is a little bit embarrassing to say, but when he said his full name was Stanley, I went, oh, Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
It was
it's the Han Solo thing.
Moment.
You obviously haven't seen Solo, but in that movie, this isn't like a spoiler or anything, but like he like shows up at the spaceport and they're like, "What's your name?" He's like, "I don't have one." And they're like, because he's like an orphan or whatever, and they're like, well, you gotta have a name. What's your last name? And well, because he's like, I'm Han, and they're like, you don't have a last name? He goes, no, I'm just by myself. I'm just riding solo. And they're like, well, there's your name. And I'm like, like really? That's how it really? That's the most creative you could get. That felt very like that. Like, oh, I'll just put my first name, and it'd be like if I went by Dylan.
Dylan.
Dylan, but Lan is my last name, and the first name is Dill. I don't know. Maybe we'll try it.
Would you recommend the doc, Dill?
I think for someone who knows like almost nothing, but like I do think if you kind of know a lot about the history of Marvel, I don't think you're going to get anything new. I think the only new stuff you're going to see is that last 5 minutes where you're seeing him film the cameos, but then that's just kind of like, whatever. You can just
watch the
cameos,
movies.
But, right. So like I give this like a 5 out of 10 just because I didn't learn as much new. And like the documentary itself was like well made, but again, I think it has those glaring issues. And reading stuff from Jack Kirby's son about it, like I was like, it put a little bit of a poor taste. But the guy is still great. I mean, he's still a genius. Obviously, he helped create something really amazing. So I just gave like solid right in the middle, 5 out of 10. I would recommend it to someone who wants to know more and doesn't know, but also with a grain of salt of it's very much from one perspective and only one perspective. So So we'll move on to the next thing in just a second. We did get a comment from someone who is in the trivia league, Mr. Josh Domash, Mr. JD. Mr. JD says hello there. I haven't had a chance to watch the documentary yet, but just wanted to say hello. Well, hello JD. If you're still on, we are going to move on to other stuff that maybe y'all can talk to us about. Let's do some like little brief things. First off. This was my favorite news story. So everyone knows I'm not a fan of Love and Thunder. So I felt very validated by this news story. And that is that Chris Hemsworth has gone on record criticizing Love and Thunder. And I'm not trying to be like, get those. It's not a clickbaity thing. He just, I'll read the comments when asked about Thor Love and Thunder and why people didn't respond as positively to it. He says, quote, I think we just had too much fun. It just became too silly. It's always hard being in the center of it and having any real perspective. I love the process. It's always a ride. We just don't know how people are going to respond. And then he went on to say how his daughter was the most critical of it, or his kid's friends, because his daughter was in the movie. His kid's friends said, he goes, it's a bunch of 8-year-olds critiquing my film. We thought this one had too much humor. The action was cool, but the VFX were just not good. I cringe and laugh equally at it. So it's kind of cool to see like some of the Marvel actors kind of like reflect on their own movies. And I just thought that was a funny news story because I read it. It was like Chris Hemsworth hates his own film, and I knew that was false because I was like, well, that's not true. Let me actually click on the article and read what he said. Right. He just says he thinks it's a little too silly, and that's why audiences didn't take it seriously. And he, you don't know when you're in front of a camera. I mean, I just came back from a film set and like I was having a blast. But if the movie sucks, I'm not going to be like, no, but it was fun. Like, no, I'll be like, it was fun, and it just didn't come together. But I didn't think our movie. I didn't think the movie's going to be great. Just saying. Okay. But it's one of those things where it's like, you never know until you see it how it's going to go. And you know what? If you had fun on the process, if you had fun. I mean, he made it with his daughter. I mean, that's all you can ask for, I guess. But any thoughts on that headline of him talking about his own review of Love and Thunder?
It's funny that literally the like gaggle of 8-year-olds he's talking about like nailed every single criticism. They were like too much humor, not the fight sequence were like bleh, and also the visual effects were just bad. Like that's literally what like grown ass Marvel fans like those
Yeah.
are all they hit the nail on the head, and that's
And when you have
hilarious.
8-year-olds saying that looked crappy, like that's when you know. You're like, maybe you need to
That's
give
really
them more
funny.
time and more money to make these, or maybe like demand less of them. I don't know. All right. Other little bit of news. Hulk is now on Disney Plus. The Incredible Hulk is finally the whole contract or whatever was Sony or whatever studio had it. I don't even think it was Sony, has ended, and now Disney is able to put it on Disney Plus. So the Incredible Hulk is available. So anyone in the Trivia League who doesn't want to go and try to find the Blu-ray or rent it or anything, you can now watch The Incredible Hulk. Now, every single movie except for No Way Home, I believe, and Far From Home, I believe, are on Disney Plus. Is Far From Home on there yet or no?
No,
Homecoming is now.
it's just
Okay.
Homecoming right now.
So the only two films you can't watch, only three, I should say, are Far From Home, No Way Home, and Guardians 3. Every other film is somewhere on Disney Plus for you to watch. So, but Bale, though, I know JD. I know Bale's great. Bale's great in the movie. I get it. No, he's great. But Bale wasn't having fun. That's for sure. But Bale was methoding the shit out of that.
In
Love
he's talking about Love and Thunder.
Yeah,
yeah. No, yeah,
but
that was
Hulk,
the highlight for sure.
Hulk's on Disney Plus. How do you feel, Kels? Because now you have no excuses not to watch it.
That honestly is fantastic news because I have to study. So the fact that they're just adding more and more of the MCU on Disney Plus is going to make my rewatch so much easier and more convenient for me. And just so you know, it was Universal Pictures that
Universal, that's what it
was. The Incredible Hulk.
Interesting.
But, you know, it's still going to be one of those ones that, like, it's like watching The Incredible Hulk was like being forced to eat vegetables as a kid. It's like, you know, or like even now as an adult, like, you know, they're not my go-to, but I know I need them for nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like, you know, some vegetables, but like I mostly just eat them because I know I have to. And that's what it feels like whenever I watch The Incredible Hulk. I'm like, I just need to watch this because there might be a question.
Kels, he is green, so it makes the analogy.
There
makes
you
sense.
go.
But JD does say The Incredible Hulk is shockingly very underrated, and I won't agree just because I think it's like properly rated. It's not one of the best MCU films, but maybe underrated in the fact that I don't think it's the lowest of the low. And I think, honestly, with more time, I've appreciated it a little bit more because I think the visuals are still really good compared to some of the stuff we're getting now, to where, like, I almost kind of wish they went back to the kind of more grounded stories where, like, there's some visual effects, but it's mostly set in real life sets. And I don't know, something about Phase 1, the more time removed from it and the more stuff we've gotten since, I've kind of come around to appreciate a little bit more just because it kind of was using a regular budget in regular ways instead of trying to overstretch it. But I'm interested to rewatch it now that's on Disney Plus. Even though the match is written, so you know, I won't say how much of the Incredible Hulk is on there. I try to evenly disperse all the films.
Sure.
You never know with the wheel spins. Some films are favored more than others, just by nature. But so it's very interesting. We'll see how that goes after you watch it for your match next week, Kelsey.
Still, if you're looking for a movie that's more grounded and definitely uses real sets and films on location, might I interest you in Eternals?
Oh, that is underrated. That's what I'll say.
That is a shockingly underrated film.
That is an underrated film.
That is a hill I will die on.
It's really funny because I love Eternals. We both love Eternals, and I know Chad, friend of the show, and Chad, if you're upset at me for saying this, it's okay because you're about to be upset with me in a sec for my opinion about another movie. It's interesting because the Eternals, the way we love the Eternals, and Chad hates the Eternals, is how I feel about the Flash because Chad loves the Flash and I hate the Flash. So it's like kind of interesting because now whenever he's like Eternals sucks, I can just be like the Flash sucks, and he'll be like Flash is awesome, and I'll be like Eternals is awesome. So it's like now I kind of feel that balance to where now I'm like, all right, I get where he's coming from when he says how bad Eternals is, and he doesn't understand how I can love it. That's kind of how I feel now. We'll be able to have that counter. Like it almost like balances us out now because now I'm like, Chad, how do you not see the brilliance of the Eternals? And now he can just look at me and say, Dylan, how can you not see the brilliance of the Flash? So we're even now. And JD does agree Eternals is underrated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, JD.
All right. Last little bit of news before we get, because we have like two big news topics. And Kelsey has a news topic she wants to bring up. But Spider-Verse, It's crushing. It's crushing at the box office. It is doing so well. The first Spider-Verse, it was an animated Spider-Man movie. Not many people knew what to expect, but it blew up in popularity and in reviews, but it didn't really blow up in box office. But this new one, it made 120.5 million in its first weekend alone, which is about 28,000 per theater, which is huge for an opening weekend for an animated film and for an animated superhero film. That gives the Spider-Verse the 8th best all-time domestic opening for an animated feature. So that is a huge opening for Spider-Verse. It really is a really amazing phenomenon. I saw it again when I was in Detroit. My one off day in Detroit, we all went to see Spider-Verse because I loved it that much. So Spider-Verse is performing very, very well at the box office. And I didn't get to show this off because we filmed it. We filmed our Spider-Verse review when I was in my house in Jersey, but I do have my poster here. I wanted to show everyone just because we got these posters at the movie.
Yeah.
And I just want to show everyone how cool the poster is that we got for opening night. Some of you might also have this one, but there it is. I'm just going to... Oh, I just knocked over all my pop figures. There it is. I'm trying to show it all in one frame, but it's not really working. There we go. I guess.
It's also hard because our the screens are mirrored, so we like move the opposite direction. I'm explaining for the people who are watching that was probably very difficult because everything is opposite.
I knocked my Groots off.
No, not Groot.
Oh, I have every form of Groot except for... Oh, no, I have Big Groot, but he's in New Jersey. But you know what? I'll get him later. Oh, my God. I'm knocking my Groots all over the place. My Groots are all over the place. Where's Baby Groot? Here he is. I'll just set him right here instead. Because he's sitting there with the little
M&Ms.
candies. Yeah, here we go. So he's gonna sit there, and big teenage Groot is just gonna hang out right next to Star-Lord there. Oh, nope, he's falling over. I'll just lay him down right there.
His head is too big for his body.
Those pops, man. Like the Thor pop doesn't stand up on its own. It literally just falls over because the head is too heavy. It just falls every which way. But he's got the little Surtur helmet in his hands, which is cool.
Oh, nice.
And then the Hulk has his gladiator armor.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
And then, of course, Star-Lord. But those are the only Marvel I have here, but I have some other ones. Just some thoughts before we move on to the next topic. Firmly on the middle on Flash, that's fine. JD liked a little bit more. Across the Spider-Verse was one of those films where I think people were able to catch up with Into the Spider-Verse during the pandemic, helped the sequel. Yeah, because Spider-Verse was a big pandemic watch for a lot of people, so I guess that built the hype. Sequels always do better if the first movie is really good. I'm definitely not surprised. And they announced on this wavelength, they announced they are in production. Sony is working on a live-action Miles Morales film, so we're going to finally see Miles Morales in live-action form. Not related to the MCU at all. I think it's still going to be its own separate thing.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested to see how that goes. Any thoughts on Spider-Verse? Just a few weeks removed. Just have you thought about it anymore? Do you still love it?
Oh, I still love it. I can't wait for the next one. And I do want to say on record that I also got the poster with Dill because we both saw it together, but I took a cab home back to my apartment and I left the poster in the cab.
How do you leave? I get it if it was like, okay, so I saw Asteroid City. I saw Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson movie, and they gave us these little alien keychains, the alien from Asteroid City. I could get losing this. If this falls out of your bag in a cab, it might be little, but a big poster?
Dill, it was 2 a.m. when we left that movie. I was very tired. And I never want to feel like I'm wasting the cab driver's time when it's like I do the payment and I give him his tip and I'm like, okay, thank you. Have a good night. I am rushing to get out of that cab because I feel like I'm taking up too much of his time. He probably has somewhere to be, blah, 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 whatever. So I just grabbed my stuff quickly and left. And I literally walked into my apartment. I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I was holding something. And then you texted me. It was like, oh my God, the poster is awesome. And I was like, my poster. It was very sad.
There's 2 things I hope. I hope either the guy was a big Spider-Man fan and was like, awesome! Or I hope he went home and was like, shit, I gotta find that girl to give her poster back. And he's currently on a search through New York to try to find you.
Wow, that'd be iconic.
And you're gonna fall in love. Anyway, I don't know if he was your age.
We'll see.
Type, but, talk about your news. You want to bring up Secret Invasion. Tell me some thoughts on Secret Invasion.
I just wanted to bring up Secret Invasion because I feel like it's getting talked talked about a lot right now.
Yeah, it comes out in 2 days. So
It comes out in 2 days. They released a trailer for episode 1, which was interesting. And it just like looks kind of crazy, you know. We have shots of Maria Hill saying like, you know, we see a lot of Nick Fury without an eye patch, which I'm digging. I'm
is that
digging this
jarring?
look
Oh, you like it?
of
Okay,
just
cool.
no. I think that, you know, do something different, shake up the look. He's been around for like, you know, 30 movies now with the eye patch. We can see him without the eye patch now, and you know, it just looks like it's gonna be this like super. You know, we're never gonna know who's not a scroll and who is, and I
Mhm.
feel like it's a combination of all my favorite characters, which are, you know, Martin Freeman's, um,
Ross, yeah.
Everett Ross, thank you, Ben
Wow, did I get
Middleton's
a wait,
Talos.
wait.
Okay, all right,
I need to wait. Here's the soapbox here for all the podcasters.
go ahead.
I'll step up on my soapbox. Here I go. All right, I'm up on the soapbox. I walked over it. Now let me hop up.
Lots of steps.
All right, I'm up on my soapbox now.
Okay.
I just got pulled a Marvel name before Kelsey. I would have won a speed round against Kelsey. Just saying. All right, let me hop off my soapbox now and go back to my seat. All right, I am here. Wow, that was amazing.
Listen, I would have got there eventually. I only really know him as Martin Freeman because I just love him. Ben Middleton's coming back to play Talos. You know, we're meeting new characters in this one. I'm excited. Are you excited to like get back into watching a show, Jill? We haven't watched a Marvel show in a minute.
Yeah, because it's like Spider-Verse happened, we talk about it, and then it's like that's our review. You know, like it's nice to be
Right.
able to talk about something and then like revisit it again next week and then next week. And it's nice because
Right.
now
And
that we
like
do this, now that we do trivia once a month for these longer series, it'll be like we kind of have a little break, so we can do 2 at once. Like next week, we have a trivia match to do, so we're not going to talk about Secret Invasion until 2 episodes or 3 episodes are out. So it'll be cool to like kind of talk about them in chunks and then kind of progress as the season goes. I'm very excited just because I really like Nick Fury. I like Samuel L. Jackson, and I've been kind of wishing that Marvel will just go back to something a little bit more grounded because everything's been cosmic or huge visual effects. We got the Quantum Realm, we got Guardians, which I think looks amazing. I think Guardians visuals look really good, but like again, it's very otherworldly, and now we're finally gonna back to the raw roots, which I feel like we haven't really been to. I guess a little bit Wakanda Forever, but Wakanda Forever has so much like otherworldliness just in its design that like this really does feel like a phase 2 project, you know what I mean? So I'm excited for it, and I am excited because other critics have already seen the first 2 episodes and a lot of them like it. Some of them are like just waiting for it to heat up. Some of them love it. Very few dislike it, so that's good. Next, moving on to another thing that just got a trailer, and that's Kraven the Hunter.
yes.
Obviously a Spider-Man villain, but it's part of that Sony verse where they can't really use Spider-Man, but they can use the villains. It's the Venom verse where you can see Venom, but you can't really see Spider-Man. So what do we think, Kelsey? Did you watch the trailer?
I did watch the trailer.
Okay.
I did my homework.
Right.
So I must have forgotten in my brain that it was going to be Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Okay.
And I watched the trailer and I was like, is that Aaron Taylor Johnson? And I was very happy to learn that it very much is. It was giving me a lot.
You're a fan of Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Oh,
okay,
big
cool.
fan. Huge
okay,
fan.
Good. Did you
Love
see
him.
Bullet Train?
I did.
Yeah,
I did, and I really liked it a lot. It was really great.
Have you seen Nocturnal Animals?
No.
You gotta watch it. Do you like Amy Adams?
Yeah.
Do you like Jake Gyllenhaal? I mean, do you like Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor?
I like his work. Yes.
Not him. I'm talking about him as an actor. His performances.
Yeah. That's
okay. Then you'll like Nocturnal.
What I mean by I like his work.
No, I know. It was my way of asking, do you like Jake Gyllenhaal? Knowing the answer is you hate him as a person because Taylor Swift, but like you don't disrespect his acting. I don't know. You'll like Nocturnal Animals though. Check it out. It's really good.
Okay.
Aaron Taylor Johnson won the Golden Globe for it. It's great.
Oh, incredible.
So yeah, more thoughts on the trailer. Sorry, I just wanted to get it out because I like Aaron Taylor Johnson too, but I feel like some people are a little like. I don't know. I feel like some people don't like him.
I'm excited. What's not to like? He's a great actor. He's good looking. He's
kick-ass too. He's kick-ass. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
That's another superhero film. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm excited to get more of him in a Marvel movie in some capacity, because he was gone too soon in the MCU. So if I can get him in the Marvel in a different way, I'm excited. I will say though, the trailer was giving me a lot of Wolverine vibes. Like
Okay.
it felt very reminiscent of like
Mhm.
the first Wolverine movie, which like was, what was it? X-Men Origins Wolverine, is that?
His first solo
Or
movie, yeah, in 2008 would have been X-Men
because
Origins, but yeah.
that's where we
But
delve
people
into like his
kinda
backstory.
I was gonna say people kinda disregard that film in general, so, like, his first, like,
Sure.
real film is The Wolverine in 2013. 10 years later, retrospective, go check it out on
Well,
Letterboxd.
it just I mean, I'm not saying that the quality is going to be similar because we don't know yet, but I'm just saying it was reminiscent just because, it's this guy who grows up with like a younger brother of sorts, and they have this kind of like evil, this seemingly evil father raising them, to be bad
Played by
people, and
Russell Crowe.
played
Played
by
by
Russell Crowe, who's
who
doing yet another crazy accent.
I fucking love it. At this point in his career, why not? Get those checks. He's now in Superman. He's Superman's dad. He is
Mm.
now uh, Zeus in the MCU, and now he's Kraven's dad. Like honestly, get that paycheck, Javert. Do it.
JD saying that he felt more of a Morbius vibe from the
Oh,
trailer, which
interesting. Yeah, I
that's
was gonna say
crazy.
JD. Yeah, sorry, JD is all in for Old Man Fury. Me too. Marvel's looks promising. Marvel, Miss Marvel vibe. Yep. He says Craven
Yeah.
shrug, but Ariana DeBose. Yes, Ariana DeBose, my girl.
Yes.
She's in it. She looks great in it too. And
Yeah,
Morbius
yeah,
vibes.
yeah.
Morbius vibes. I got a little bit of that in the sense that it's like it's so weird to have a villain removed from a hero. You know what I mean? It's like how do you? But same
Mm,
with Venom, and I think Venom made it work. I just think if Craven can like kind of figure out its thing, and rather
mhm.
than just like this is a villain who does villainous things, but also not trying to make him too heroic. Like, don't
Yeah.
make it like Cruella, where you're like, oh, Cruella, and then you're like, oh yeah, she harms puppies. Ooh, how am I?
Right.
They need to find a balance. I think, not make him like a superhero, kind of like a Venom. Like, yeah, he's a
Yeah.
villain, but like, there's something charming still that we'd like to watch.
And then another aspect of it that kind of reminded me of the Wolverine movies was that it just seems very violent. And I'm hoping that they kind of
Is
find
it
a nice
R-rated? I'm gonna
balance.
look it up. I
I'm
don't
just hope,
remember.
because me, I talked about it before. I'm not a fan of really violent stuff. I think that it needs to be well balanced. I don't
Mm,
mind if there's, because I feel like in a way the Deadpool movies are very violent and very graphic, but they kind of balance it out with the comedy and how they, are really great at like developing the characters in the Deadpool universe. But
hmm.
I feel like as long as there's a good balance between the story and the acting performances and the action, that it should be fine. But those are the
Yeah.
two things that make me hesitant for this
Yeah, I'm
film.
not I'm not finding a rating anywhere, but it does have a red band trailer, meaning an R-rated trailer. So yeah, I guess it's
Mm.
R. It has to be,
When
right?
when does it come out?
It comes out October 6th, so just in
Mm.
time for the Halloween. Um,
Ooh,
yeah,
spooky
I don't
season.
know a ton about Craven. I remember like reading Spider-Man comics and like liking the presence of Craven, but I remember him with like
Mhm.
a very thick accent. That's what Russell Crowe has, but they're not doing that
Mm.
with Craven, just his dad. So that's an interesting choice. I like the whole idea of
Thank
like
God.
he speaks with the animals. My only worry is like do they have the visual effects to pull off the animals? Because like when you have animals doing a lot in movies and you don't have actual animals on set, you're not gonna have a real
Mhm.
lion. Like at least I hope not. Cocaine Bear used all their budget on the CGI of that one animal to where it looked pretty
Right.
good. It looked convincing. But is it
Right.
going to work when there's so many animals going on, or are they going to lean into the schlock of it? I don't know, but I didn't hate the trailer. I thought it looked interesting. I just don't necessarily know what they're how they're portraying Kraven in terms of like, are they going full fledged villain? Are they going kind of like anti hero? I don't know. It's like Wolverine, we still
Yeah.
know is a hero at the end of the day. Whereas here, I'm like still trying to struggle with that. And I think that's the problem that Morbius had a little bit is that it was a villain, but there was an even bigger villain that he was facing. And like, same
Mm.
as Venom. So I'm really interested to see what they do because Venom had the comedy angle to lean on of the whole like
Right.
odd couple, kind of
Mhm.
the physical comedy and the humor in the scenario of like, oh, he's talking with this other thing. But Craven, I don't know what they're going to do yet. And I just don't know where these are all building to. And honestly,
Yeah.
if they don't build to something, that's fine. But then don't give us post credit scenes with Michael Keaton showing up, assuming they're going to connect all these into a universe. It's just let it be.
Mm.
And I hope they just
Yeah.
let it be because I know he signed on for multiple movies as Craven. So I know they want to
Mm.
do something with him, but I like how the Venom is kind of just staying in its own lane. I hope this does too. But any other
Yeah.
thoughts on Kraven?
I'm
Oh,
I'm
I forgot to mention at the very end we get another tease for another villain who's going to be in it. Rhino is coming back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that
Yes.
shook me. Just seeing like
Yes.
kind of the skin, and it looked cool with the very subtle bit we saw. But yeah. Well, yes, David Allen says he's a villain. Yes, he is a villain in the comics, and in the trailer they do that. But I was just wondering if they were going to like kind of make him more of like a sympathetic villain, kind of like the movie Cruella, or even kind of Venom did or Morbius did, where like there's a bigger
Yeah.
villain, so you're still rooting for him. I wonder if because this is a standalone movie, there's no Spider-Man. Because if it's a Spider-Man movie, Craven's the villain. But like
Mhm.
when it's just Craven's movie, are they gonna maybe make him more sympathetic, at least toward the end? Maybe that's my one worry is like let these villains be villains. But yes, he is a villain in the comics, so we'll see.
For me, I was getting more of an anti-hero vibe because it kind of
Yeah,
feels like the main villain of it all will be his father.
yeah,
Because there is that line, I forget who says it, but maybe it's Ariana DeBose says it to him and is like, "You're no different from your father. You hunt exactly how he did." So it kind of feels like there's almost this struggle of like he doesn't want to be like him, but he's killing bad guys. So is he really, a part of the problem? Um, that's
yeah.
at least what I was getting. Maybe there's a
It'll be
big
very
villain
interesting.
turn at some point.
Not sure,
Uh,
but yeah, Kraven the Hunter based on, and I'm reading this on Wikipedia, Stanley and Steve Ditko. Just throwing it
hmm,
out there. All
there
right,
you
and the
go.
last bit of news, which is probably like the biggest bit of news in terms of just like how it impacts the overall MCU and like big deal shit is the WGA strike, the Writers Guild strike. Very blanket statement to anyone who's not like in tune with this, because it's a public thing, but especially for entertainment industry, we know about it, but some outsiders might not know. The Writers Guild is striking. They basically want to get paid more money by producers, so they're going on strike, and they're not
Hmm.
working until they get their money and
Hmm.
the money they feel they deserve. So until the producers budge, the writers aren't budging. And now SAG has agreed that if the producers do not meet the SAG expectations, SAG will also go on a strike, which is Screen Actors Guild, which affects even more people. Now, a lot of people have
Right.
been turning this into, well, how dare they hinder the movie industry by striking? Now they can't release these movies or they can't make these movies. And I say, I totally support the writers. I hope, honestly, if it goes 2 years of just getting AI made films or non-union films in order for those writers to get what they deserve, I'm for it, because I'd rather the writers be happy and well taken care of than
Hmm.
the writers working for so little money just for our sake and our entertainment. So that's the way
Right.
I look at it. I'm fully in support of the writers strike. I was very fortunate enough. I don't know if you were at work the other day, Kels, in Times Square. In the middle of Times Square there was a concert for the WGA. The Broadway threw like a concert in support of the WGA. I
Mm.
walked from work to go watch it during and it was really cool to see just all the singers and Broadway stars kind of come in support, and I got to watch Lin-Manuel Miranda and Sarah Bareilles perform for free. I got to see the
Oh,
original
wow.
the original guys from Rent sing "What You Own" for free. I was like, this is crazy. I'm living the dream. And
Wow.
I'm standing there in my uniform at work, and my manager's with me, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is so cool!" I'm like, yeah, this is nuts. So if you're watching and you're one of my other managers, I did not leave work. I was still on shift. Don't worry, I was listening to any parties coming in the door to seat. Don't get me in trouble. But it
Till
was cool.
left work to watch the
No.
concert.
Anyway, Writer's strike obviously affects Marvel, because now the whole rule is when they're on strike, any scripts that have been written can be produced because everyone else can work except for writers. But the
Hmm.
difference is when you're on set, you're not allowed to change the script in any way. If it's a union writer who wrote the script, you're not allowed to change the script in any way. And if it hasn't been written, you can't write a script unless you hire non-union actors and it becomes a non-union project. But obviously, Marvel, they're all union projects. So the predicament Marvel's in now is that a lot of their movies need scripts, so those are getting
Hmm.
delayed. A lot of movies that had scripts are going to film, but the big one that is currently in production is Deadpool 3. Now, Deadpool, Kels,
Mm.
is pretty nice because Ryan Reynolds does a little riffing, a little improv, right?
Hmm.
That's altering the script. So he's not allowed to improv on set. So now they have to film Deadpool without
Mm.
improv, sticking only to the script they have.
Oh.
And that's the issue we're in. And that is why
Okay.
everyone's a little nervous for Deadpool 3, because now so what I think is and a lot of people are sharing this sentiment. They think that what they're going to do is film everything that's more action forward first, and then
Yeah.
hopefully by the time the writer's strike is over, they can film the comedy stuff and the quips and all that, or
Yeah.
film it all where he has the mask on, and then later
And
once
just
they have
dub it over. Yeah.
ADR. So, thoughts on Deadpool, and then I'll get into the actual calendar because a lot of MCU dates have shifted now, have been pushed because of this. So, but thoughts on Deadpool specifically, and the writer's strike in general. Any thoughts on that? And are you worried for Deadpool because of this, or you don't care?
Well, that's interesting. So if an actor wants to improv something on set, that like has to be cleared by the writers.
Yeah, because technically you're changing the dialogue in the script, and they would need to. Yeah, so you have to go by the script. You can't alter the script in any way, and that includes improv. So you must stick to the exact words on the page. Otherwise, you're breaking the strike code. Or like for example, my movie I filmed in Detroit, it was a non-union writer, non-union actor, so we were able to improv, do whatever we wanted, and he could alter the script every day. But just being on a film set, I will say there's a lot of like the day before, oh, here's a little revision of the script for the scene we're shooting tomorrow. They can't do that. They have to go with what they have. So that's what that means. It's just they cannot improv because any improv is technically adding or subtracting words from the script.
I see.
Predicament.
I'm not. I feel like I'm not too worried because I feel like, well, who wrote Deadpool 3? Did Ryan Reynolds? Does he have a writing credit on it? Or
I don't know if he does. Let me find this information. I feel like he must, because I think he still gets credited because he improvs so much.
because of the improv?
All right, so the screenplay, and this is a little worrying just because usually when you have this many people on a screenplay, it's doomed. Ryan Reynolds, Sean Levy, Rhett Reese, Wendy Molyneux, Paul Wernick, and Lizzie Molyneux are the 6 writers on the Deadpool script.
Okay.
Yep, and Ryan Reynolds is considered a union writer, so he's double banned. And JD answered our question while I was looking it up. Yes, thank you, JD. Thank you. I love the live chat because it keeps us, it keeps us from, But yeah, so Ryan Reynolds cannot improv because he would be altering his own.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I kind of trust that the writers wrote a very good script, and that anything else Ryan Reynolds would want to add in it would just kind of be extra. I think that either the first 2 Deadpool movies could have just been released word for word without any sort of, addition or subtraction of anything. And I think that they still would have been just as funny and just as entertaining. I think that, just Ryan Reynolds putting his own little spin on it is just kind of just getting like bonus content. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make me too worried for it because I do trust the writers first and foremost to write a really, funny and intellectual script. I will say though, I found something out about Deadpool 3 that I was upset to learn, and I don't know if it was true or not, and I forget where I even saw it. I think I remember where I saw it. Yeah, I think it was on some sort of website. Anyway, it's that Domino will not be in Deadpool 3.
I believe I heard that as well. Yeah. But Peter will. I did see that. So
that's not what I wanted.
No, I know.
Wait, you mean the guy Sugar Bear? Is that who you're talking about?
No, the Peter, the guy who signed up to join the X-Force and then like died right away.
Yeah, the guy with the mustache.
Yeah. He's
back. He calls him Sugar Bear.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
all right, you got a trivia point back on me. You can get on your soapbox.
Thank you. She was so cool. I want to see her in Deadpool 3. What the hell?
And again, it might have been one of those things where they might have later decided to add her back in and maybe negotiate something, but they can't do that until. And granted, if the writer's strike ends tomorrow, then they can go back to business as usual, improv whatever they want. But like that's the thing is I think, as far as I know, she's not in this next one. I think the only ones who have been confirmed though are Ryan, Hugh Jackman, and then the guy playing Peter. From what I've read, there's probably more, obviously. But I haven't looked into too much of Deadpool 3's production. But okay, so JD did say she was interviewed herself and said she wasn't in it. So
yes,
very interesting.
Zazie Beetz is her
Zazie
name?
Zazie Beetz, yeah. Who was in something recently that I forget, but was very good in it. Let me just see if there's any other. Who else is in the cast right now? Blind Al is back. His roommate.
Oh,
Um,
funny.
I don't know how much of this is true, but it says that Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are in it because of Loki. So they might. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
Uh,
Random.
No, just because it says Loki and then
Oh,
Mobius being
yeah.
Morbius. Marina Baccarin's back as Vanessa. Matthew
Cool,
McFadden's
she's
going to be in
cool.
this. Yeah, Rob Delaney is Peter. Colossus is back. Yukio's back. Miss Minutes is in it. So I don't know if they're Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Dopinder, the driver. TJ
Yeah.
Miller is also back apparently. So I don't know if I trust this because I don't think TJ Miller is back. I don't think he's back anywhere. Anyway, I don't know. But anyway, Deadpool 3. The interesting news, though, because of this, I
Yeah.
think, though, because Deadpool 3 is the only one that's actually in production, they actually moved up the release date from November 8th, 2024 to May 3rd. So May 3rd gives them, I think, 11 months to get it together, finish it, edit it. But I think it's
Huh.
very interesting. I assume maybe their thought was, well, these other movies don't even have scripts done yet, so we can't do anything. So we have to push this one up because at least this one has a script done, and then the other
Yeah.
ones will hope the writer's strike's over. But if this writer's strike goes on for a year, everything's going to have to push. They're going to have to because there's no way Ryan Reynolds is not going to want to slip in an extra joke or two in the final cut. I just know it, and I think
Sure.
a lot of Deadpool was improv. So I don't know. I really don't know. Like I think a lot of Deadpool script, there were sections that says Ryan improvs here. So I really don't know. But let's talk really quickly about some of the other shifts. Captain America: Brave New World, which is the title for the 4th Captain America film, has been pushed from May 3rd, which is now where Deadpool is, to July 24th. So it's moving 2 months. So maybe that script's done too, because that's about a year from now. Maybe not. Thunderbolts, which was supposed to come out in July 26th. So Captain America moved into the Thunderbolt slot, and Thunderbolts moved into this Christmas slot, December 20th. Fantastic Four is now moving from February 14th, 2025 to May 2nd. So that's moving 3 months. Blade is moving from September 6th, 2024 to February 14th, 2025. So that's moving almost 5 or 6 months. And then the next 2 Avengers movies, the Kang Dynasty is delayed now until May 1st, 2026. And Avengers Secret Wars is now May 7th, 2027. So Deadpool's the only one that moved up. Captain America basically took Deadpool's slot. Thunderbolts took Deadpool took Captain America's slot. Captain America took Thunderbolt's slot. Thunderbolts took Deadpool's slot. Then Blade got pushed. Fantastic Four got pushed. Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, they all got pushed. That's the easiest way to say it in the shortest terms.
Wow.
Thoughts on that?
2027 feels like a made-up year, but I guess that's only 4 years away, so it shouldn't sound that insane, but for some reason it does. JD's saying that Owen and Loki are not confirmed and TJ is not back.
Yeah.
And that
was just reading it off of Google. So Google's just that's the AI
I think
algorithm.
Google makes things up because when I was like looking at Spider-Man, like I don't know, they said something insane that like Andrew Garfield was going to be in like I don't even know, like Loki season 2 or something.
Madness or something.
Yeah, something bizarre, which is not true.
But this also affects other things, like all the Avatar movies are shifting. A lot of the Pixar things are shifting. Star Wars is shifting some stuff.
Yeah.
So like the writer's strike is affecting all, but I just want to get back to the overall point that like the writers should not be blamed for any of this. And I think there's some people out there who are like, ugh, if the writers just suck it up and take the money they were getting, then like none of this would have happened. But I think I don't think people understand how little they're making for the amount of work they're doing, because a lot of this stuff, especially the world building and stuff, a lot of it rests on the writers. You know what I mean? Like you could get a guy fresh out of acting school who's not union to be in a film, but you need a union writer because they have the experience. They know what it's like to write for a big project, you know? And that's not to diss non-union writers. There's some great non-union writers, but usually, you know, it helps to have that credit, you know? So I don't know. It's very interesting, but I don't think the Writers Guild should be blamed at all.
The fact that at the end of the day, Jill, the industry has completely changed, right? Like it's no longer they're no longer making money the way that they used to, which was through ad revenue and, airing live on television on like ABC and then making all that money from commercials. It's all streaming services now, basically.
Yeah, so you don't get money per view anymore like you would.
Right.
Like an episode of Friends airs on Nick at Night, they're getting money every time it airs.
Right.
If you
exactly.
put it all on
The
Netflix,
residuals
they
are different.
can't watch it on TV, then like I'm thinking of like Coda, the Best Picture winning Coda. They're not making money for people watching it. It's just up on Apple, and they got their pay, and they probably got more pay for the Oscar, but they're not getting money because it's not airing on TV at all. There's no
right. Exactly. And since the way that, the way we consume media has changed, the way that we treat the creative team behind the media also needs to change. And I don't think that that's a big ask at all. So I'm hoping that they come to a decision soon. Some people in like the industry or like who are industry adjacent are predicting that they're going to come to some sort of agreement by the end of this year. And I'm hoping that that's the case.
Yeah. I would hope, because the last writer's strike, I believe, was 3.5, 4 months long, and that was in 2007. So keep in mind, the writers' prices right now, the writers, what they're getting is 2007 contract agreements, which is, it doesn't feel like a long ways away, but it's at least 15 years. Like that's 16 years. So it's been 16 years since they last made an agreement. Like a lot has changed. Ticket prices in 2007. I could see a movie for $5 normally. Now I pay $20 for an IMAX ticket. You know what I mean? Even more. So I really do think that, like you said, the climate is changing so much that they need that. JD says, agreed. The fact that studios haven't plan to replace writers with AI is reason enough. Yeah. Also, more writers are in New York, LA, which is ridiculous. Rent. Exactly. Yeah. Rent is expensive. We both know. Kelsey and I. So, and that's another thing is the AI thing is scary too, because now they're threatening, well, if the writers aren't working for us, then fine, we'll just have robots write our scripts. And it's weird because it's possible and it's scary. And I don't want to go down that road. No, but that's the thing is, if you have like big stars and flashy action and you have a lame story, then maybe all you need is an AI to put the dialogue to paper. And that's scary. That's really scary. And I hope we don't go down that route. It might be a cool experiment once or twice to see like, oh, how would it work if we have an AI try to make a comedy or try to make an action comedy, but like, I don't know. It scares me. That scares me a lot.
No, yeah, that feels so dystopian and weird. I don't like it at all.
Yeah,
I don't like things thinking of things.
Yeah, and then the next step is, well, we just make it all animated and we have AIs voice the characters, and then actors are out jobs, and then we'll have AI to edit the films, and then editors are out jobs. And that's why I'm still glad. We still have cameras, we still have tangible things, we still have actors who are going on sets and making them. But once one thing gets AI'd, everything's going to get AI'd. So I hope, like storyboarding, they could easily just say, AI, make me a storyboard. Like that's scary to me. So I hope that doesn't happen. And if it happens, it's a very quick experiment and then we're done. I hope it doesn't last like 3D lasted after Avatar, where everything was just in 3D for no reason. And then we finally got removed from it. And then Avatar: The Way of Water came out, and then everything was again in 3D everywhere. It still is. So, but that I'm not as annoyed about, because it's like, whatever, things are jumping at me when they don't need to be. Yeah, so that's the writer's strike. Or get AI to do the first draft and then get a writer to rewrite at a great or reduced price. Yeah, sure. But again, there's just something about that like, if I was a writer, I wouldn't want that. I would feel defeated.
And I think that if it gets to a point where a studio is trying to like produce a script that was written by AI, I think it's up to actors and directors to say, no, I'm not being a part of that. And then if something does get made, I think it's up to us, the consumers, to kind of boycott that and say, no, I'm not watching that.
I agree. But then the tricky thing is, if it ends up on Netflix and you have a Netflix account, are you supporting it? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what's tough. Yeah. Like everyone's talking about The Flash and how there's maybe a certain actor that people don't want to support. So they're not going to go pay for The Flash in theaters, which is totally their decision. Totally fine. I saw it for free too, because I didn't want to pay to support that actor and put money in their pocket. But if it ends up on HBO Max or Max now, Max, stupid Max. If it ends up on Max, then I am technically still giving money to that person because it's on Max and I am paying for a streaming service that has that film. So it's really
Right.
one double-edged sword. And I
Mm-hmm.
agree. It's like kind of the same thing. It reminds me of Singing in the Rain. It's like, do you really want to be singing backstage while someone on stage lip syncs and it's your voice and everyone's saying you sounded so good when you're when you're the one singing, but you're not the one being seen? It's the same exact
Right.
thing. It's like, do writers really want to fill in afterwards? In AI, make a draft and then you fill in the gaps. Like, it feels like Singing in the Rain. It's like you're kind of writing someone else's work, and that's why I love that movie. So yes, very interesting stuff. I almost said exciting stuff. It's not exciting, but it's an interesting time we're living in, especially off the pandemic. Like,
Yeah.
think about how movies were put on a hold because of the pandemic, and like how we were kind of like craving that movie theater experience. Craven.
Mm.
We might go into another slump like that if the writers don't get paid and there's not movies coming out for a good chunk of time and they can only release stuff that's been written or non-union projects. The only hope is that I hope it maybe gives a few other non-union writers some opportunities to maybe work while they're waiting. Like obviously
Sure.
I just wrapped on a non-union project. I hope more now independent films kind of flourish a little bit because of it, because now some of the blockbusters are put on hold, but I still hope
Mm.
everyone's getting paid at the end of the day the right amount. So
Yeah.
that's our news. That's, I think, everything we needed to cover that we've been missing out
Yeah.
on. Any other Marvel things you want to talk about, Kels, while we have the time?
Let's see.
You have a trivia
Well,
match next week.
I do have a trivia match next
How you
week.
feeling about that? How you feeling about that?
Well, okay, so on a positive note, I have my Letterbox account up and running. Can I
Oh,
can I ask you a question? Is it Letterbox or Letterboxd?
Letterboxd.
Okay, so I haven't been saying the D. I didn't even know there was a D in it.
That's what she
But
said.
now okay.
I'm
I
looking it
literally
up now.
paused because I was like, Dylan's gonna make some stupid joke. But
Oh,
anyway,
I see.
yeah, see, I've been okay. So since I'm preparing for the match, I'm obviously rewatching all the movies, and so I'm rating the movies as I watch them. And once I'm done with this whole rewatch, I'm probably gonna put them in my little ranking. So I'm excited
Nice.
to be doing that. I'm
So
nervous for
can
the
I share your
match.
profile now? Can you say
Oh
the
yeah,
name of it? So
yeah,
follow
sure.
Kelsey here. I'm gonna put it in the chat here as well. Her letterbox now is Kelsey. Oh, I almost just typed two L's. I almost typed Kelly. Kelsey. There it is. So that is where you can find her if you want to find her on
Kelsey Kilp.
Letterboxd. And this is what it looks like. It's her profile, and she's logged 3 films. So she has logged
Yes.
Captain America: The First Avenger, Captain Marvel, and Iron Man. She has
Yeah.
given Captain America: The First Avenger a 6 out of 10, aka 3 stars. Captain Marvel 3 stars, and Iron Man 3.5 stars. And then you can go to your films, and all your films are displayed there that you watched. You can go to your
Yeah.
diary, and it shows the dates you watched them.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's pretty damn cool. And you also have a list, Kelsey. You want to explain what this list is?
Okay, well, I'm trying to make a list of every movie I've ever watched. So
Okay.
so basically, like, I'm going by streaming services because I feel like that's the easiest way to do it. It's just like
Mhm.
I'm scrolling. I started with Netflix, and then I'm gonna go through like all the movies on Hulu, HBO Max, and just like I'm gonna just keep a collection of every movie I've ever seen. Just it's more for me than it is for anyone else. But I'm just having fun. I'm just getting my toes wet here in the
Oh, for
Letterboxd
sure.
universe.
Yeah, and do you
So
like it? Have you been like looking at other profiles or reading any other reviews or not really?
I
You're looking at mine.
uh
No.
yeah,
No, it's
absolutely
okay.
do.
No, it's okay.
Um
I need to catch up because I need to catch up on all my post Detroit and in Detroit because I would like watch a movie to go to bed in Detroit and I always log them whenever I watch anything. I'm just like boop log.
mhm.
You can log Stan Lee now. You watched it today. You can log it.
Yes, I can.
Do you want to do it on air?
Okay. Well,
If you
sorry,
don't have
excuse
the
me.
app, if you only have it on your laptop, that's fine. But
Yeah, I don't have the app
it's
yet.
okay.
So
So
let
you'll
me
do
get
it
the
off air.
app.
But her star rating and logging of Stanley and potential review, if you want to write a review, that's fine.
Okay.
For that, and you can even link this video into there either too. You can do so many cool things with Letterboxd. I hope everyone gets it. But yeah, you can follow me at Dylan Randazzo at Letterboxd. You can follow her at Kelsey Kilp. Where else can they find you though on the internet, Kels? And any last words before your match?
Wish me luck, guys. Who knows what's gonna happen? I'm scared. Okay. It's my Instagram is Kelsey A. Kilpatrick, and my TikTok is Koz 13. If you want to follow me on either of those.
Yeah. You look like you had something to say though? Did you have something to say? You were like, oh no. Oh, okay. It looked like you had another thought you wanted to bring up. But anyway, Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter, Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok. Dope Pickle Movie Network. If you're listening on podcast, please check us out on video. The podcast is doing that thing again where it's not automatically posting from the video, so now I have to manually do it again. Kelsey brought it up. She was like, last thing was posted was April 17th, so I'm so sorry. That's my birthday. I'm so sorry if you guys haven't been getting the audio feed. I will fix that this week. And then we'll never have a problem again. I promise. But next week, I know Secret Invasion comes out in 2 days, but next week we will be having a match. Kelsey's taking on the Dark Phoenix, Stacey Morris. The first ever girl-on-girl title match, Kels. That's pretty cool. Like no matter what happens, that is a pretty cool thing to happen. That we have two girls. A woman will have the belt, no matter what. And it's going to be cool because you got the hero versus the villain. Stacey's been, and we know Stacey off air. Everyone who's watched Draft Day knows Stacey's not actually a mean person, but her persona in Marvel trivia, it's intense.
It's scary.
So it's gonna be cool. Yeah, and that's her. And honestly, that's been her great tactic in terms of like winning these matches. Is she's very stone faced, very like chill, and I think that's a good approach because her competitors get a little freaked out. They don't know how to read her. They don't know what wheel slices to give her if it's spinner's choice and stuff. But your strength is that you always watch these movies. You love these movies, and you eat, breathe, sleep Marvel, and you also have hosted some of these matches. But again, this year you stopped writing questions because we were trying to make it as fair as possible. So that's going to be another thing. Is now having taken a break from question writing.
Yeah.
Let's see how you do. And I'm excited because I think this is your toughest competitor yet. I love Noah, I love Zach, I love JD, but I think Kelsey, this is going to be your biggest test yet. So I'm very excited to see how it goes. And win or lose, you should be proud because if you lose, you get to play in the league. You get more matches. And if you win, you're the belt holder. So there's no losing. You know what I mean? That's coming from me. From you, you might be like, no, there's only win. No,
no, listen, I go into every match, happy for it to go either way because honestly, I go into each match that I played rooting for the other person because I would love to, pass on the belt to someone else. Of course, someone who's been as gracious.
It's our league. It's
a part of our league.
Show. Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like keeping it in the family anyway. So it's like, I would love to give someone else their opportunity to get it. And so, well, and I feel like
but you're not, but you're following that up with but I'm going to study my ass off and try my best. Like you're not throwing this.
Of course, I'm going to put my best foot forward, because I am competitive and I really just, I don't even think about it competing with the other person. I just compete for myself. And I'm more upset if it's something that like I should have known and that I don't know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll see what happens. And either way, I feel like I'm a part of history because it is two women. So I'm just excited and scared, as Little Red Riding Hood would say in Into the Woods.
I love that. Great way to end it. Tony Awards happened. That was great. Any Marvel actors win? I'm trying to think.
Jodie Comer won.
I wish she was a Marvel actress. Who knows? I mean,
who knows?
We're getting a Fantastic Four reveal soon, and she's
could happen someday. Oh yeah, she is.
Sean Hayes has not done Marvel, has he? No. Jay Harrison G hasn't. Alex Newell, no. Bonnie, no. Yeah, I don't think any Marvel actors. But hey, there's always a place to start. You know what I mean? So thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for live streaming with us. I know we had some good commenters watching along. JD and David, thank you for tuning in and watching this. I know it was live only because we couldn't schedule this before, so we were like, let's just do it live on Monday. It's still Monday, so it still counts. I'm gonna go eat some Vietnamese food and watch Top Chef. Kelsey's gonna get on her Letterboxd and log some more movies that she's watched. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys.